The Globe and Mail has an amazing story about the NAFTA renegotiation going on right now. Canadian negotiators are demanding the United States roll back so-called right-to-work laws, accused of gutting unions in some U.S. states by starving them of money as part of the renegotiation of the North American Free Trade Agreement. The request is part of a push by Ottawa to get the U.S. and Mexico to adopt higher labor standards under the deal. Mexico, meanwhile, is campaigning to include its oil and gas sector in the deal. These major moves on the labor and energy files came over the weekend at the second round of NAFTA renegotiations in Mexico. One group of negotiators spent all day Sunday working on the labor file, according to a schedule of the talks obtained by the Globe and Mail. One source familiar with the discussions said Canada wants the United States to pass a federal law stopping state governments from enacting right-to-work legislation. The source said the United States has not agreed to such a request. Canada believes that lower labor standards in the United States and Mexico, including right to work, give those countries an unfair advantage in attracting jobs. Okay, so we've discussed the NAFTA renegotiation a little bit previously, and the reason why we did is because Donald Trump and his team are sliding in different proposals and provisions of the TPP into the NAFTA renegotiation. Think about how cynical a move that is. Now, at least with the other Republicans, they were upfront about their shitty beliefs. They were like, yes, we're in favor of TPP. We're in favor of outsourcing more jobs. You know, effectively, fuck the American worker. They were much more upfront in their embracing of so-called free trade deals, but they're really outsourcing deals. Now, that was a horrible strategy because people go, oh, I don't want to lose my job, so we're not going to vote for you, Marco Rubio or Jeb Bush or Ted Cruz, and they voted for Trump because Trump was strongly anti-trade in his rhetoric on the campaign trail. But see, Trump is also a giant liar. So he gets into office, and what does he do? He kills TPP with an executive order, which everybody gave him credit for, as they should have, but when nobody's looking, during the renegotiation of NAFTA, you slip in those same disastrous provisions of TPP. And it's the worst provisions of TPP that he's resurrected to slip into the NAFTA renegotiation. Now, my guess was that after he killed TPP, what he would do is bring back TPP and call it the Trump trade deal or something ridiculous and say it's the most tremendous deal ever, it's the best deal ever, the most unbelievable, believe me. And then he'd try to pass it. But no, he was actually more sly, more slick. He said, I'm not going to bring it back in as a separate trade deal. I'm just going to quietly slip provisions in there. Only a handful of media outlets will report on it, and everybody might still think, oh, he's anti-trade. That's not true. So that's why we discussed the NAFTA renegotiation beforehand. Today, we're discussing it because the policies that the Canadian government is pushing for are more pro-American worker than the policies the American government is pushing for. Think about that. Let it swirl around in your head and marinate in your brain. That's incredible. The things that the Canadian government is pushing for are things that would help the U.S. worker more than what the American government is pushing for. Now, they're not doing it because they're kind. They're not doing it because they're good people. And, they're just looking out for the American worker. No. The reasoning was given to you at the end there. Canada has higher labor standards. They have stronger unions. They have better rules. They have better regulations. And as a result of that, you're going to have corporations, they don't want to go there. The owner class, the elite, the establishment, they want to go where there are as few regulations and rules and strong labor unions as possible. So that's why they're more likely to, ship all the jobs out to Mexico and when we talk about NAFTA. North American Free Trade Agreement. Under other trade deals, they love shipping jobs to fucking Bangladesh and places where there are virtually no rules and regulations because that's better for the owner class. That's the only group of people it's good for. Sucks for the fucking workers across the board. It's a race to the bottom in terms of wages and benefits and whatnot. But it's only good for the elite, so they, ship it to Bangladesh, ship it where, we can exploit damn near slave labor. So Canada, because they have better rules and regulations and stronger unions, they're like, look, we want to make it so that we're on an even playing field here. So you need to treat your workers better so that the ownership class doesn't want to send all the jobs to Mexico and honestly, what they're saying is to the U.S. too. Isn't that crazy? We're now in the same conversation as Mexico in terms of how we treat our workers. There was a time when the U.S. had strong unions, but there's been a war on unions from Reagan and onward, and they chipped away. Year by year, chipped away, chipped away, chipped away. Union membership is at an all-time low, and shock, the middle class is hurting more than it's ever been. Because there's a direct correlation between how strong your unions are and how healthy your middle class is. So now Canada is saying, you guys got to stop with these right-to-work laws. You know what that is? That's where they say, oh, there's not the union membership dues. So in other words, you can have people who are not union, but they still benefit from all the work that the union has done. And so in other words, you don't have to fund the union, but you could still reap all the benefits of the union. Well, guess what? Over time, if nobody funds the union goes away. So it's a backdoor attempt to crush the unions. And the reason why it's so dangerous is that it's phrased in a way where people think it's about freedom, my freedom from the tyranny of more vacation time and better wages. That's what I need, freedom from that tyranny. So people take their union for granted, say, I'm not going to pay the union dues, but then they still get the benefits of the union until the union's no more, and then all of a sudden the wages go down, the vacation time goes down, and they go, fuck, we should have funded the union when we could have. So right-to-work laws are really right to work for less, because they've done, there's been a bunch of different analyses of this, and they found that in the states that are right-to-work states, the pay on average is like $1,500 less per year. Nothing to scoff at. And they get worse health care, worse benefits, not as much paid vacation time, so on and so forth. So right to work is really right to work for less. And Canada's saying, well, that makes it so the ownership class wants to set up shop there. No, let's have good labor standards everywhere and then make it an even playing field in terms of where the jobs go. So, yeah, we should get rid of the right to work laws. Look, you don't have to... The libertarians would say, well, you've got to make the conditions most appealing to the corporations for the corporations to stay there. But the problem with that reasoning is the best case scenario for a corporation is always pay the least amount possible to the workers. So, in all seriousness, wage slavery is preferable to the corporations. They want to pay people less than a living wage. They do. Because that means more profit, more money for their shareholders, more money for the bottom line. So, since that's the case, you can't just have them run the show. You have to have rules and regulations to prevent the abuses of that system, to stop that system from running amok. And unfortunately, in the U.S., we've said, no, let's go more in the direction of what the corporations want. But no, if you have organized labor, they can be a counterbalance, a counteracting force to the greed and recklessness of the corporations, to the amoral machine that is the corporation. So organized labor fights for a standard work week with a decent amount of hours, paid vacation time, maternity leave, a living wage, no child labor, stuff like that. And Labor Day was yesterday, and this is a good time to thank a union for all the things that they've given us, that many people don't even know how hard people had to fight to get these basic things, just like a weekend, for example. So Canada's right. Let's end these bullshit right-to-work laws. Let's pay people more, give them better vacation time, and make the corporations be reasonable. They're not going to do it because they're kind, because they're not. So you have to make them be reasonable with rules and regulations, and we should have an even playing field where we respect labor across borders.